Dr. Heidi MacGlaughlin is a faculty member in the Deaf Studies and Deaf Education Department at Lamar University. Her focuses are on language acquisition and literacy in deaf children and ASL English bilingual instruction. I believe her dissertation is regarding fingerspelling and literacy skills as well. And if she is ready, Heidi, I can turn it over to you. Okay, so now if anyone has questions or concerns and needs technical support, please use the chat feature. And then at the end for questions, we will pull it up again. Thank you. Thank you for your patience with technology. Technology is not my friend, I have to tell you. Even though we use technology almost daily, it is just not my friend. So anyway, now I'm hoping now I'm presenting today. I know it's the end of a full day of a lot of great presentations throughout the day, and a lot of them, culminate with with how to maximize students, deaf and hard of hearing students with differentiated instruction. Okay. So we have 4 things we want you to keep in mind that are objectives for today's discussion. We are including various strategies. I can't talk about all of the strategies. I'll talk about a few that I've selected that are successful for deaf and hard of hearing children. We'll talk about different ways to motivate and challenge students. We will have purposeful experiences like have been talked about all day long, real life application, and respond to various needs: deaf disabled, deaf blind, deaf autistic, deaf gifted, traditional deaf, deaf with no language. We have many, many challenges and issues, and we have to work to address each of them and still make the classroom a success. Okay. Now, do you know the game Who Says That? Do you know? Okay. What is hungry? Grab a what? Uh-huh. For fresh feeling. Yeah, so everybody kind of knew those, right? And I just wanted to go through this really quick. Okay, so now you see that there are different ways to differentiate. What do I do? 1, 2, 3, 4? Well, it's obvious, number 1, because I did not accommodate you. I assumed that you already knew. But what else could I do? I could use Wordle. You see the colors on the right, the colorful words, where students could look at those words and fill in the answer. I could use teachers' notes and have them ready to present. Or I could use the picture with showing the actual logos there are different ways to differentiate rather than what I just did, where all of you were kind of like, well, I don't know, and kind of guessing, but with pictures there, if I had the words there, then maybe you would, oh, it would ring a bell and you could recall some of those and be able to answer the questions. I'm going to skip the poll, the everywhere poll. I don't want to have a technology glitch. Okay, we'll switch.
Okay, so now I want you to keep in the back of your minds throughout the presentation and see how we differentiate with deaf and hard of hearing kids. It's important to communicate, have that turn-taking discussion. And the prior presentation talked about socialization, interacting, connecting. That is key. That's number one. It's key to being able to strive. And once that is set up and communication is enabled, then scaffolding will help pull up their skills. And then also we want to see, like, it's like we're in the window and we're trying to pull them up. And then we have to make sure that we are sequenced. We're providing sequencing. For many of our students, maybe their language delayed, maybe they don't have any language when they arrive to school. So what do? Do we just go ahead and jump in and go straight into academic language with abstract teaching styles? Like for high school students? No, we have to go back and provide those connections with communication and make sure there's turn-taking skills, scaffolding, and then sequencing. You have to start with the social language first and then build upon that with academic language. So keep that in the back of your mind of which strategies that I mentioned throughout the presentation and figure out how we can help pull up their language. So why should we differentiate? Well, today, our students, they think differently, they learn differently. Their backgrounds, their home life, their school experience, their language, their environment is not all the same. It's individualized. Long ago, we taught that strategy where it's one size fits all, but now we have evolved from that. We have to differentiate. We have so many students that attend school and, you know, like the snowflakes, there's not any two similar snowflakes. It's the same concept with our children. No one is the same. So I'm not going to show this entire film here, but I want you guys to watch this later. And it's called The Animal School. Maybe some of you know about this, but it talks about animals and how they have to do there's 4 different content areas. The first one is running, swimming is the second one, third is climbing, and the fourth is flying. So, I mean, with the animals, that applies to fish, ducks, elephants, rabbits, and eagles, and monkeys. And so there's various types of animals, they have to pass all 4 areas. And so if they're not able to do those 4 areas, guess what? They fail. So how would you think about your students? If they are required to, you know, achieve mathematical skills, English skills, if they have to pass science, and then also PE, they had to be completely skilled in all academic areas. Well, you know what? With their strengths, you have to help pull up their strengths and build upon that. It's similar to the animal school, this film. It's great for teachers to see. Okay, so this gentleman here, his name is Paswell. He has studied and he is an expert in differentiation. And he discusses on whether all students actually do it. Can all kids do it? Would all kids want to do it? So keep that in the back of your mind, those 3 sentences. If you answer yes to all 3, that means you're not differentiating. I mean, you want all the kids to do this, right? You want to be able to teach the same lesson, but however, the kids won't be able to do it. It won't apply to all students. If you want them to learn in a similar manner, you have to differentiate. You have to differentiate according to their interests and their readiness. So those are the 3 questions you need to ask yourself and keep in the back of your mind when you're planning a lesson. So differentiation is not letting students do their own thing because they're not able to perform on the same level. So you just give them the work. No. Homogeneous grouping. Like I said, one size fits all. And so that's what that is, homogeneous. Or chaotic. You think, okay, you're trying to make sure they are all on the same page. Or limiting to one strategy. Just presenting in a lecture style all day, and that's your one strategy. And so that is not differentiating. And so I'll show you a visual of that. So sometimes students, whenever they're finished with an activity or are done with their work, you can give them some busy work. And so you think, well, okay, I'm differentiating because they worked very quickly on their assignment. Well, actually, busy work is extra work. Extra work is not differentiating. Maybe the class is struggling, and so you try to differentiate. However, if the students are struggling, and then the ones that are actually achieving in this academic area, those are 2 different groups. So you have to differentiate both groups. So differentiation is qualitative, data-driven grouping. And a lot of that is the teacher's responsibility during their lesson plans, assessments, like during the day, what type of assessments that are provided. And so if a student needs to work on their reading skills, well, what reading skills? Inferencing, like Megan just mentioned, inferencing. So how do you differentiate that? Do you highlight? Do you choose certain words? So again, look at the data of your assessment and see what individual students need to work on or what students can strive on or achieve on. So if the teacher feels overwhelmed, I understand that, or they feel like they don't have time, well then, I mean, you are in special ed. So we have to look at their IEPs and we have to input that information. We have to consider it. And yes, we do feel stressed. We do feel overwhelmed. However, once you manage on how you plan your lessons, and then you apply it to your instruction, it'll become routine. It'll become natural to you. It will just become organic. It'll become your growth, and you can adjust when needed. And then you'll become an expert, and by the time you know it. And so, and also turn it over to student centers. Okay. So here's another visual of differentiation instruction. And that is grouping in various groups based on content, based on their needs. Now, we're not going to water down the content either, as Megan mentioned earlier. Watering down curriculum, that's a no-no. We water it up. We water up the instruction. We focus on the students, and we try to figure out how they learn and the various ways that they learn. The goals of differentiated instruction. All tasks should respect each learner and their needs. So suppose, for example, for PE, some students maybe are unable to run fast. Do you force them? Do you force them to run laps and run it fast? No. So you build upon what the child can do. They can run as fast as that individual can. And then perhaps the next day or a few days or later, or maybe the following week, the goal is to beat that prior time and build upon that slowly but surely. So the student could say, well, you know, I ran a lap in 4 minutes. So the goal would be to reduce that to 4 minutes, you know, or 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So that's the individualized goal. So it's you make sure that the task is differentiated for each student. For instance, math is complicated with equations and formulas, and it has multiple steps. And students may, you know, break down and are upset and have a tantrum, and that happens. So what do? You have to break down the steps, you know, and you feed it to them a little bit at a time. So that way it causes less anxiety and less fear, and they won't shut down. Just break it down for them. And be mindful of how you provide assignments to students. And again, the goal is to increase their knowledge by scaffolding and making sure that they understand the skills for that lesson. And again, apply it to Bloom's taxonomy. So that was mentioned this morning. So every student is encouraged to think in depth on a higher level. You don't want your students to, you know, see the same information. They need to recall, they need to remember the information, but you want to increase that. So what you can do is synthesize. You want them to analyze at a more higher level, according to Bloom's taxonomy. And you want to intrigue their interest, you know, where they want to work, that they're interested in doing the activities. You want to engage their interests and have engagement participation.
So there are different facets of differentiated instruction. There are different ways to learn the information. There are different amounts of time to complete the work. It can be in large or small chunks. They can be broken down throughout the week and due perhaps on Friday. Some students may complete the work early, which is acceptable. And if some students need more time, they're given a larger time frame, perhaps by the end of the week, or they're given the weekend to complete the work and be able to turn it in on Monday. So there are different approaches. You want to include their culture, their background, their language acquisition, incorporate holidays that they celebrate, traditions. What do they do on birthdays? Think of their culture. Some students at a high school level may have to work in the evenings to support their family. So you need to look into that. Some have activities after school that last all night and they don't have time for homework. Look at that as well, and how you can have different approaches for each student. There are different levels of learning. Like I mentioned, some are great at PE. Some have a skill in reading. Some prefer math. Some like history and really telling stories within a timeline. That's their learning style. Some are visual learners, some are auditory. Some like touching and feeling, and they're more kinesthetic. It varies, so it's important to know and be able to differentiate accordingly. You can use different assignments for students in the same classroom, and also use different means to assess. There's a state assessment. There are local assessments. There is a school assessment. There are classroom assessments. There are formal and informal assessments. There are so many assessments that you can use in your classroom. So now I'd like you to look before DI, before differentiated instruction, get an idea of what this looks like. I'll give you a minute. So this is something that you would do. This is something that was done in the past. A teacher typically will introduce the unit or topic. The students read the assigned materials. As a teacher, I give notes. The students work on an activity. Students practice at home. And the next day, there's a class discussion. Again, teacher gives notes. Students work on activity. Students watch a video. There's class discussion. Students complete a project. Students take a test. Does that sound familiar? Yes, yes. So that should, no. It must look like what? This. This is after I am actually differentiating instruction. This is what we do. Take a look. That feels like a lot, right? Whoa. But once you get the hang of it, it will feel ingrained. Like I said, it's organic. You have to do it. Apply these things, do it daily, and then it will be incorporated and natural. Just like when it was your first year teaching, it was tough and awkward, but then your 10th year, you're totally experienced and it's natural. So keep in the back of your mind what students need at each level, each reading level, and then again, go back and look at the classroom expectation. Each individual is differentiated and they need to be aware, and you need to be aware and respect each individual. There's no mocking or laughing or, oh, that's not fair, I want that challenge. Everyone learns in different ways. So the students feel safe in that classroom environment. And then instruction can be differentiated. You'll debrief. You know, everyone is reading the same topic, so there are points that everyone talks about, so everyone feels included, even though their reading levels are all different. You may disseminate notes, however, with the lecture. You can pull up videos. Like we just talked about, technology, you can throw in a video. How to assess understanding can be with an exit card, or if it's online, students can sign their response and send it to you. You want to make sure of their tier if they're struggling and they need more support, or they're at a higher tier where they need little support, or at a higher tier where they need no support. Homework, they have a choice. And I will show you shortly the tic-tac-toe choices. And so you have this cycle, and then it continues back to the start. Teachers can differentiate content, process, product. Go through your readiness, their interests, their learning styles, and then you see a list of things on this PowerPoint, and I'll touch on some briefly. Content. Teachers already do this. It's content that you want to learn, the topic, the unit. It's already in the lesson plan. Student objectives are already in the lesson plan. This is something you already do. You want to make sure you include what the students need to learn. Now, the process, that is the most challenging part. The timing, how I'm supposed to differentiate, the doing, the scanning, the pulling things up, and how do I group? That takes flexibility. Maybe in math class, you have assessed that there's a student that needs, there's a group of students that need to work on this. And then there's this other group that can work independently. And then this third group maybe needs a little guidance and support. If you have a TA or a paraprofessional or a co-teacher, use them. Have one of them, maybe your co-teacher, work with the group of students who need support. For those who can work independently, maybe a para could start checking in on them. And then I could focus on those who need that guidance. And we can switch or rotate, the adults can. Or the next day we'll rotate. Maybe the students that need guidance in that group understand the concept the next day. So maybe the next day, one of those students is moved into the group that is working independently. If there's someone who's just really needing a lot of support, but then all of a sudden gets it, they can be moved into the group that fits them appropriately. So it's important to be flexible as students meet different levels. Students sometimes feel like they've been in a group for 2 or 3 weeks, but they get it. And they're staying in the same group. If that happens, they'll lose motivation, they'll become bored and resistant, and possibly have behavior issues. You want to continue to hold their interest and keep things exciting. And then you have the product, which there are so many different ways, and we'll talk about that tic-tac-toe thing in a minute. So this is an example I'm giving. If I wanted the students to do a persuasive essay, there are 3 different levels based on tiers. What they do at the basic level, they can write a cohesive paragraph with a main idea and supporting details. And then you have the intermediate group, where the students can add or state a point of view. They could also perhaps add multiple reasons to defend that viewpoint. And then for those who are progressing advanced, they can expand the quality of their essay by adding multiple credible sources for support, which supports their point of view. So you can see that there are 3 different groups, but they're working on the same thing. They're all working on a persuasive essay. It's just modified for each individual who's working in the classroom. So that's content. If I'm talking about the product, the end product, you could have, if the students were basic, they could write and compose. You could give them an option to sign, to video themselves signing, or come up to the room and or come up to the front of the teacher and sign. If they don't feel like they can write and they're afraid or anxious, they can sign their ideas. Some actually are great at drawing or drawing pictures. It really varies. The process. This is what you want the students to arrive to and how the students get there. What are their interests? Maybe they are in different reading groups and we're talking about, well, it's the fall, we've got Halloween coming up. Maybe we talk about celebration. We could talk about Halloween, or in Mexico, there's the Day of the Dead, or maybe they don't believe in Halloween. Sure, that's fine. It's just based on their interests, and it's based on their readiness and their learning styles. Some maybe like to create. So you have a group that likes to make things. Some like to explain, so they want to draw or share a story or build. This is the most popular tool that teachers really like to use, tic-tac-toe, because there are choices depending on an individual's learning style. Verbal, some like to write, poetry, journal, jargon, music. Some like math. They like to compute. They like numbers. You can use bingo, a bingo sheet, and you'll have, 1 tack. And if you complete 5 in a row, then you get your bingo. So Monday, you have an X. Tuesday, you have an X somewhere else. Wednesday, you have an X. And then on Friday, who gets bingo? Some students will say, well, let's see what the fastest way I can get to bingo is, and they will follow either the straight line vertically or the straight line horizontally, or they'll go straight vertically, diagonally. And so it depends on the student's wants. And you can see there's a free choice in the middle, or free 10-minute pass. If it's a recess and they want an extra 10 minutes, there's so many different things and rewards that you can put. You can also input rewards online. You can give them 5 minutes to at the end of class to get online and do their own thing, and they love that. Music. Many deaf and hard of hearing children really do enjoy music. I mean, think of TikTok and signing music. That's fine. They can do that. Or even clapping, There's a song like I love fall, fall. So you can clap to a chant. You can say fall, snow, leaves, colors, and it's kind of like a poem. And you'd be amazed to see how many students are really excited to have the choices. It's as long as they do the work, sure, they can have those choices.
So this comic that's on this slide right here says, hey teacher, as we start a new school year, Mr. Smith, I just want to let you know that I'm an abstract sequential learner, and I trust that you'll conduct yourself accordingly. And that teacher is looking at that student shocked. Okay, abstract sequential learner, meaning that person's learning style is they rather abstract sequentials. And so I mentioned this earlier, multiple intelligence. It's a learning profile. I use Gardner's multiple intelligence. It's a wheel here. And so and make sure that all of it is equal. All learning styles are equal. So for instance, bodily kinesthetic, that's body smart, or interpersonal, people smart. Maybe you have students who they're thrive at interacting with various types of people. Maybe they have charisma. So what you can do is you can take advantage of that skill, take that skill and strengthen it. And some like to read books. They're word smart. Or they're great at logical mathematics, logic smart. They're naturalistic, nature smart. And maybe they're great at, you can include science, STEM. Maybe they're good at building things, or maybe they're great with computers and fixing computers. We'll take advantage of that skill. Maybe individuals like outdoors and walking through nature, and they enjoy the forest, or they enjoy going out for an outdoor walk, or going to the beach, or going to the mountains. Well, take that interest, or perhaps you can bring the group and go outside and have a discussion outdoors and discuss various topics rather than staying in the classroom all the time. Most of us, we are doing this remotely, we're online, and we're learning virtually. So how can you do that outside? Well, you can think of a project perhaps for them to do that they have to do outdoors. So assign them a project to do outdoors. Like for example, PE. PE, how can you do that at home? Well, at our school, at Texas School for the Deaf, the PE teachers, what they do is students have to show evidence of their exercise. So students will open up their camera, or there's an app that they can use. So the app includes biking, and it shows how far they biked, and they could submit it to their teacher. There's a walking app that you can use. Some will go swimming. They'll go to swimming practice, and then they're able to have that information submitted. So just be creative with how you use virtual learning, and how, for instance, our students are able to show how they exercise. Maybe on the camera they can say, hey, watch me, and they're exercising on, maybe it's not that exactly, but you can encourage them to go outdoors and take advantage of being in nature. Maybe when they go for a walk, they can take pictures and share those pictures and submit it to the teacher. So interpersonal skills, self-smart. Some would maybe rather just, have just one other person with them, and that's fine. That's self-smart. Some maybe are great with photography. They have great photography skills. They're great with the camera. Like for the nature walk example, they can bring their camera and take pictures of the beautiful forests, or the foliage, which is rare in Texas. I'm sure in Louisiana, I'm not sure, but they can take advantage of seeing the colors of the leaves change and take pictures of that, take pictures of nature. And so with the background, especially, using special effects, and they can add that to their nature walk, or you can add it to other different academics. And you can use several of the learning styles all at once from this wheel, music, smart, and so on. Just think of their various learning styles according to their profiles. And so what you can do is you can have a grid with their names listed on it, and then check off their learning styles. And if you can't memorize it, just use a chart, and do whatever works best for you. Oftentimes, you'll have a student with various types of multi-sensory. Some may prefer tactile or kinesthetic. Some will probably prefer visuals. Some probably prefer words or terminology. And we do have students who are deaf or hard of hearing who have learning disabilities. And with learning disability, there's not just one type, there's different types under that branch or umbrella of learning disabilities. There's several of them. And for instance, it is according to their diagnosis, or do they have anxiety along with their learning disability? There's various types. So oftentimes they do struggle. And I notice it whenever they struggle, their anxiety increases. And so once they feel calm, then their mind is clear, and they feel more settled and comfortable, and then they're open to learning. And so what can help with that is yoga and meditation. Give them time, maybe 5 minutes to calm down and relax, and then they will be ready to learn. Their minds will be open, and they will feel comfortable and ready to go. Or maybe there's breathing techniques that they need. You know, maybe they're feeling very anxious. So to help calm them down, maybe give them a bathroom break so they can go to the bathroom and calm down. If you're doing virtual learning, maybe have them turn off their video, and because maybe with having the video, it's causing anxiety. They feel like all eyes are on them. So maybe they can turn off their video, but they're still connected. And so what the teacher can do is have them check in and say that they're there. Say, you know, the teacher can say, hi, are you still here? They can turn off their video and say hi, and then turn off their video. And so again, look at your student's IP. See, there's anxiety listed. They rather turn off their camera. And I mean, we are all shifting gears, you know, to virtual learning and learning how we can increase or maximize our differentiation instruction for them. So I made a comment about kinesthetic, where they prefer tactile, you know. And especially for deafblind, they like pro-tactile. Amy and Marissa mentioned that earlier. For deafblind, what they can do is first, they need that connection first. They need that tactile feeling. And once they feel comfortable, then, you know, they can engage. And the reason being is because the way they think is so different. And you can see that in your brain, if you have hearing, they can sense that with simulations. But with tactile, it's a different type of simulation. So maybe your students don't like to be touched. For instance, in elementary, maybe they touch sand and they don't like the feeling of it, and they're not interested. Or jelly, maybe they don't like that texture. So maybe, and some students, maybe for mac and cheese, for the haunted house, maybe you have a container where they can put their hands on into it to see what it is, and they don't like that texture or feeling that texture. So you adjust and you find out what's the best way to accommodate or differentiate so it doesn't cause trauma or anxiety. And now here's a list of examples for multi-sensory ideas. A squish bag or a salt box. You know, for reading, they can have a squish bag. And they have those beanbag chairs they can sit on. You can use it for support, or just they like the feeling. They like how it feels to sit in. Or the squish bags or stress balls. So the salt box is more for feeling. Or wet paint, they can play around and do finger painting. And you can add salt to that, and it feels rough. The texture feels rough, but slowly introduce them to it. And some kids will just love it. They love the wet feeling of paint. So what you can do is you can actually make words with the paint, you know, like do mom or dad. They can draw pictures because they are communicating, they are learning. The velvet board. So whenever you're reading a story, have props available or pictures ready to use onto the velvet board. And so you can say what happened first, and you can use the velvet board and put that image there, and so on. The students can even come up and use a velvet board and apply those different pictures or whatnot. During morning circle or during chores duty, you can have a list of the chores listed, and then you can change it out. Students with autism, they have pictures that they use, and they use a Velcro board with that. Double board. So the double board is a whiteboard on one side, and on the back side, it's velvet, or on the front side could be, or both sides could be a whiteboard. And so one side could be asking a question, you flip it over and you have the answer in the back. Instead of having flashcards, you can use a double board. Or maybe you have a bigger board that you can flip around like a big whiteboard. You can turn it around. Stamps. I mean, long ago we used stamps. I don't know if you all have that. Okay, and we'll switch interpreters.
So we used to have a lot of stamps, and we in our cutting things out days, and there are different scissors. There are different shapes you can cut the scissors out, like a straight line or a zigzag line, cut with the holes in them, and the kids just love to cut them out, where there's all kinds of different things that they can, different shapes, and there are magnets. There's the Etch-a-Sketch that has the two knobs that you can play with. Young children absolutely love playing with that. They love to draw. It takes different skills and thinking about how to arrange things. Working on puzzles, self-checking puzzles, using body activities, walking words. They can use their feet or foot to walk out or trace a word, or they can make the shape of a letter with their body, like the song YMCA. So you can be creative like that. Relay, taking turns and then it comes back to you. You're moving around. Using a swatter, where you have words all over the board, all over the wall, and you throw out a sentence and they have to look at what word fits, fill in the blanks, and then you swat, to 1, 2, 3, 4 words on the wall. Oh, okay, the interpreters need to leave soon. Okay. So this can be quickly read. You can read these, the maxi strategies, and then there's mini strategies. And you can read this slide. And, you can also read this slide. Okay, so I'll just talk about this and then I'll wrap up. The ASL, like what we had just talked about, with Amy and Marissa talking about the pictures and talking about how you would show a picture and a sign. And this is a different way that you can show the concepts. And some teachers, have sign a video and then they edit it for English class. This is for middle school. This is the middle school level. Technology has been discussed earlier today. And then this, you can maximize learning by changing your mindset. And this, fair is not equal. That is not equal. So we need to make sure that we differentiate.